What's up, beautiful people? It's Harrison here, coming to you from the beautiful Boulder, Colorado on this lovely, rainy Friday evening. Tonight we're going to be doing the Metal Subgenre Tier List. Da-da, da-da-da! I have my friend Jelly with me. She is a cute blue jellyfish that my beautiful girlfriend got for me. So, she's going to be joining us this evening as we make the Metal Subgenre Tier List. Dun da da intro. Okay, so before I actually start putting these genres in their respective tiers, I want to let you guys know the kind of criteria that I'm basing my tier ranking on. First of all, there's my own personal opinion, which will carry the most weight in my decision. Second of all, there is the listenability of the general public. So what I mean by that is if you were to introduce a non-metal fan to this subgenre, would they like it? Second of all, I'm going to take into account the fan base surrounding it and the sort of subcultures surrounding said subgenres. And finally, I will take into account certain controversies that artists from these subgenres have faced. So, just so you know, this isn't any sort of definitive tier list. This is simply my opinion. But with that being said, let's get started with heavy metal. When they say heavy metal, I'm going to assume they're talking about bands out of the new wave of heavy metal, such as Iron Maiden or like 1980s Ozzy Osbourne. And if we're talking about that kind of heavy metal, I would definitely say that it's one of the most foundational subgenres there is. Also, it's quite melodic. It's quite a vast subgenre. Generally, the fans are very personable people. They're very respectful. So for that reason, I'm just going to have to put this one in S tier. I just think it's far too foundational and melodic to ignore. Iron Maiden is undoubtedly a foundational and very talented band. So I'm going to put that one in S tier. Next up, we got symphonic metal. Now, symphonic metal I like quite a lot. I think it takes a lot of talent to make. It's very atmospheric. It can be very peaceful and very ambient at the same time. And yet it's still just as heavy as any of these other subgenres in this list. I'm personally a huge fan of symphonic metal. It is a very beautiful and melodic blend in my opinion, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in S tier as well. Next up, we got folk metal. I have heard some very, very good folk metal bands in my days. I think it has a very mystical sound. And yeah, it's very peaceful to listen to. It's a very cool fusion of genres. However, sometimes the lyrics can be way too fantastical, and there aren't too many songs of this genre that I truly relate to and truly resonate with. So, by extension, if I were to introduce a non-metalhead to this subgenre, I think that would be quite off-putting for them. So, for those reasons, and considering my non-extensive knowledge of folk metal, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in C tier. I do think it can be very pretty, but I can also understand why the lyrics can be very unrelatable to some people. Next up, we got death metal. I was never too much of a fan of death metal. I think that it lacks in melody a lot of the time. And a lot of it is very poorly mixed. And not in the way that I like. I don't want to claim that, my entire music taste is full of top-of-the-line production or anything. Sometimes it sounds really cool when a band has really nice and gritty production, but in the death metal sense, sometimes it just comes off as very sludgy, and it lacks melody in my opinion, and furthermore, it's probably one of the more off-putting genres for a beginner to get into. On the other hand, I can't doubt how brutal and fucking heavy a lot of death metal bands are. I've listened to a lot of Cannibal Corpse in my day, and I can't deny their talent. I just feel as though it lacks melody in some areas, and it's quite off-putting to a non-metal listener. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put it in C tier as well. I'm pretty indifferent about death metal. There are some bands that have significantly impressed me, and others that really lack melody, in my opinion. And so next up, we got black metal, which is one of the more brutal subgenres, one of the more brutal and extreme subgenres of metal that I am much more favorable of. I've been getting into a lot of black metal recently, especially when it comes to DSBM or atmospheric black metal. I think that a lot of those songs are very beautiful and melodic, and a lot of them take a very cool inspiration from Swedish folk music, a lot of Scandinavian Old Norse folk music. I think it's a very beautiful subgenre. One problem is there are many bad people in the fan base, especially the NSBM scene. I'm not a huge fan of those people, and a lot of the fan bases are quite elitist, if you ask me. A lot of the black metal fan base is quite elitist. So for those reasons, I'm going to be putting black metal in B. Next we have thrash metal. Now, thrash metal, it's definitely one of my favorite subgenres out there. It's what got me started listening to metal. When I found Metallica on my stepdad's iPod, it was the first subgenre I listened to. So it definitely has a very special place in my heart for that reason. Furthermore, I think it's a very easy subgenre to start out a non-metal listener on, because there are many thrash metal bands that take a much more melodic approach to the subgenre. Like Metallica, like Megadeth. Slayer's a little too... Slayer's not a band I would probably start, a non-metal listener on. They're a little heavier than Metallica or Megadeth, and but other than that, I think it's a very vast subgenre that definitely refines the combination between heavy metal and hardcore punk. There are some songs that are very fast and chaotic, and there are also some very beautiful ballads in this subgenre. It is quite appealing to the general public considering Metallica's popularity. And, you know, their fan base is also full of cool people. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and throw thrash in S tier. You know, I don't know. It just holds a special place in my heart. What can I say? Next up, we have prog metal. I gotta say, prog metal takes a bunch of talent to make. It's often very melodic, very well-rounded. Plenty of great harsh vocals in the prog metal scene as well. It's very vast, it's very polyrhythmic, it's very technical, it's very melodic. I think it's very beautiful music. Many bands in the prog metal scene are simply breaking the boundaries of music as we speak. And there are plenty of prog metal bands that I've truly resonated with during my time as a metal fan. That being said, if I were to introduce a non-metalhead to prog metal as their first subgenre, I think it might be a bit off-putting, because if I were to show someone their first metal song, I wouldn't want to show them, you know, some like 30-minute Dream Theater epic with like 15-minute guitar solos and like a bunch of crazy like technical polyrhythmic instrumentals. So I definitely understand why this genre might be off-putting to a non-metal fan. If prog metal were to be your first impression of metal, it might be kind of hard to get into. I know that there are many prog metal songs that are just quite frankly too long for me to listen to on a daily basis. Like if I'm just driving to work or hanging out with my girlfriend, like I'm not going to want to throw on like some 30-minute Dream Theater epic. It's not very catchy, and I can understand why it doesn't have as much popular appeal among the non-metal community. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier, because it's undeniable how much talent it takes. I'm going to take a break to take a sip of my wine real quick. Cheers, by the way, guys. Next up, we have industrial metal. Now, my knowledge of industrial metal is not quite as vast as some of these other subgenres. However, one thing I'll say about industrial metal is it's not personally my cup of tea. I personally find it to lack melody in many areas. There's definitely a very heavy techno influence in there. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of techno music. I prefer a lot of guitar solos in my music. So for that reason, it's not exactly my cup of tea. I really do like Nine Inch Nails, however. I will say Trent Reznor is a very talented vocalist. Let's see. Rammstein is also really good, I gotta say. That German influence definitely makes it sound very authentic. Considering the fact that industrial music is quite popular in Germany, I really like some Rammstein. But other than that, I find a lot of industrial metal bands to lack melody, not really use too many technical guitar parts or guitar solos. And furthermore, it's a very shocking genre of music lyrically. So if I were to introduce a non-metalhead to this genre, I feel like that might also taint their perception of it. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put industrial metal in D tier. Next up, we have glam metal. Now, glam metal could also arguably be a subgenre of rock as well. It's more of like an aesthetic and sort of a time period. used to describe bands such as Kiss or Motley Crue or Poison. But there definitely is a cohesive sound there, so I'm going to go with it. I personally am a huge fan of Motley Crue. I think they've written some beautiful songs, not necessarily the most favorable of people. I will say they've done some things and had some attitudes towards women that I don't particularly agree with, but that shouldn't be the sole deciding factor of my opinion on it. I think a lot of their songs are very catchy. It's very melodic. They're often great guitar solos among the glam metal scene. I think their stage presence is beautiful. I think their pyrotechnics are amazing. They're usually very talented performers. And furthermore, it's probably one of the most popularly appealing subgenre of metal out there, considering the popular success that bands like Motley Crue and Kiss have experienced over the years. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put glam metal in B tier. Next up, we have gothic metal. Now, I really like gothic metal. I think oftentimes it can kind of go hand in hand with symphonic metal, but I think that less of the focus is on musical technicality, more of the focus is on sort of creating a dark and melancholic atmosphere. I think it's super cool. It's not a very popularly appealing subgenre, I might say. A lot of people might find like the look of it or the sort of darkness and sadness of it to be quite off-putting. However, I will say it's beautiful, it's melodic, it's melancholic, and I do like it. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put gothic metal in A tier. Next up, we have metalcore. Now, metalcore is a very foundational subgenre, for the post-2000s kind of metal scene. I think that metalcore is a very nice and melodic subgenre that combines great harsh vocals with great clean vocals. Sometimes there's a bit of a techno element in there. I find it to be quite enjoyable and a quite broad subgenre. It's probably my most listened to metal subgenre there is, because there are so many bands that can be classified as metalcore. Like I said, it's a very vast and broad subgenre, and I like it quite a bit. There are a lot of great things you can do with this subgenre, and it is a subgenre that continues to evolve to this day. Furthermore, it is a very appealing subgenre to the general public. Many metalcore bands have made it quite big, including Breaking Benjamin, for instance. They've experienced a lot of mainstream success. A lot of the screamo bands sort of out of that MySpace kind of Tumblr scene. You know, I was into that shit. It's very appealing to the general public. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put it in S tier. Huge fan of metalcore. Next up, we have nu metal. Now, nu metal is really interesting because when it first came out, I think that the combination of rap and metal was something that was so absurd and so unheard of that some bands made it seem really cheesy. some might have, you know, you know, it's definitely a very it's a very absurd sort of combination to make, but I think that over the years it's sort of gained a popularity and a refinement that has brought it past that initial stage where it was still sort of experimental. What I'm trying to say is there are some new metal bands that are just sort of cheesy in my opinion. I think that David Draymond is undoubtedly a very talented vocalist, but some of Disturbed's music just isn't really my favorite. I think they've definitely had their moments. Some of Korn's lyrics are lacking in my opinion. And I think it's a very hard combination of genres to truly master, especially at the time period in which it first came out, back in the early 2000s. However, nowadays, during more recent years, I think that more artists are beginning to refine the combination of rap and metal in a way that I appreciate a lot more. A lot of artists such as Ghostmanes, Suicide Boys, and City Morgue have been really refining the nu metal genre to a very significant degree. Moreover, I will say there is a lot of nu metal that was simply misunderstood and taken out of context that turned out to be very talented music that was very ahead of its time. Like Linkin Park, for instance. A lot of people thought the blend of rap music and metal was crazy and unheard of. But Linkin Park, I think, did it in a very skillful way. Rest in peace, Chester Bennington, by the way. He was a very talented vocalist who was able to combine harsh vocals with rap verses from M. Shinoda and beautiful cleans. So it's a very vast subgenre, yet a very difficult combination of genres to truly master. Furthermore, the fan base of nu metal can be kind of annoying. A lot of Kyles exist in the nu metal scene, a lot of angry, angsty white kids who punch walls sometimes. Not gonna lie, I've punched a couple of walls in my day. Drinking Monster, wearing Oakley sunglasses and a Fox Racing t-shirt. There are some annoying people in this scene, but it doesn't really taint my view of the genre too much. It's not like black metal where there are, there's a certain subculture of like arsony and like very hateful beliefs in there. It's just a few like kind of douchebags in the scene. So I'm gonna go ahead and put nu metal up in B tier. Next up, we have power metal. Now, power metal is definitely a subgenre that requires a lot of talent to create, I gotta say. It's very technical, it's very fast, it can be very chaotic, it can also be very melodic and symphonic. However, I can also see why this might be off-putting to a non-metal listener. If I were to introduce someone to power metal, I don't think I would introduce them to some like 27-minute like Dragon Force epic. A lot of the lyrics are very magical and fantastical, which also isn't very relatable to the general listener. So for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and put it up there with gothic metal in the A tier, because a lot of very talented people in this subgenre. Next up, we have stoner metal. Now, stoner metal, I'm not exactly too fond of, mainly because I think it's a very limiting subgenre. There are only so many metal songs you can write about weed. You know, I mean, sometimes it's good to like smoke a bowl and just chill out for a couple of hours, but there aren't very many metal songs you can exactly write about, you know, being high. Like, I will say, like, Dope Smoker, Sleep, it's a very cool song. I think there are some really cool atmospheric kind of stoner metal bands out there. I just think it's very limiting, and a lot of stoner metal songs are just so slow and like droning that they wouldn't really be enjoyable to a listener of the general public. A non-metal fan, a lot of the songs are way too long and drawn out for me to really be able to listen to on a daily basis. You know, when I'm in the car, like on my way to school, or on my way to go run some errands or whatever. So for that reason, stoner metal is going to go in F tier. I just think it's very limiting. It's very slow, droning. A lot of the songs are excessively long. There are a select few that are pretty cool and atmospheric and, you know, sort of out there, but it's just not my favorite out of this list, quite frankly. Finally, we have doom metal. Doom metal, it's very cool. I think it's much better than stoner metal. A lot of stoner metal, it's just like way too slow to really be enjoyable. Doom metal has a lot more range to it. There is a lot of doom metal that has some really cool riffs, has some good like speed dynamics. There are a lot of doom metal bands that, you know, have some fast sections in their song to break things up and, you know, make their songs much more enjoyable to the average listener. I would personally consider Black Sabbath to be a doom metal band, so for that reason I think it's also a very foundational subgenre to metal. I think it's really cool. It's really atmospheric. It can be very haunting. It can be very gritty, and definitely considering many metal subgenres pride themselves on speed, it's very refreshing to see some slow down and go for a much like grungier sound. I think it's very cool, and also has quite a bit of public appeal considering Black Sabbath's popularity. So for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and put doom metal up in A tier. There's my tier list. I'm gonna go ahead and save this bad boy and put it up at the end for you to see in all its glory. But thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what tier lists you would like to see in the future. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.
That's because I'm finna be great. You pull up on me, that's a fucking mistake. You pray for my downfall, your prayers are in vain. Cause I'm going up and success is my fate. We lead the day, cause we better than the rest of them. Your girl just told me that I'm the one that she's entrusted in. Only thing I want up in my pockets are the presidents. Cause I want money from my family when I go to heaven then. We lead the day, cause we better than the rest of them. We lead the day, cause we better than the rest of them. We lead the day, cause we better than the rest of them. We lead the